Don't you lie to me. I will crack your crust.
You're a stupid, worthless old man. A whole life and nothing to show for it but this rundown old farm, and a boy's gonna leave you alone to die as soon as he's able.
The film opens in Oklahoma in 1906. A man is chased by three pursuers, Dunan, Stillwell, and their leader, Ketchum. When they catch him, Ketchum demands to know the whereabouts of Curry, the man's partner. The man refuses to speak. Enraged, Ketchum ties him to a galloping horse, leaving him struggling desperately and gasping for breath. In the end, the man is forced to reveal Curry's hiding place. But instead of sparing him, Ketchum strangles him to death and hangs his body from a tree. Nearby stands the McCarty farm, where Henry McCarty works with his teenage son, Wyatt, and his brother-in-law, Al. The farm is a peaceful and ideal place to build a family. Henry grew up in New York and traveled to many places before settling in Oklahoma as a farmer and starting a family. Life with his son was fairly peaceful, but Henry was a strict and protective father. After his wife, Marie, passed away, these traits became even more pronounced. His son, Wyatt, disliked the simple country life. Henry's brother-in-law, Al, often helped with farm work and cared for Wyatt like a kind and supportive uncle. Shortly after all left, Henry and Wyatt were preparing dinner when they saw a stray horse approaching the house, its saddle stained with blood. Worried about the rider, Henry went out to search, while Wyatt stayed behind to care for the horse. Eventually, Henry found the rider lying face down on the ground. It was Curry. He was severely wounded, with a bullet lodged in his chest. Henry tried to wake him, but Curry was unconscious, so he used mud and cloth to stop the bleeding. When he noticed a bag of money and a gun nearby, Henry realized this man might be involved in something dangerous and decided to leave him there. Henry changed his mind and went back to save Curry. He picked up the bag of money and the gun, carefully erased any traces, and brought Curry home on horseback. There, he and Wyatt tended to the stranger's wounds. Wyatt noticed that Curry had scars similar to his own, but Henry didn't want to discuss it and brushed it off. To him, Curry was just a wounded thief, not a killer. Henry told Wyatt to watch over the wound while he retrieved the bag and the gun to hide them. Unseen, Wyatt secretly watched his father do it. The next morning, Henry realized Curry would die if the bullet in his chest wasn't removed. He tied Curry to the bed to keep him still, and rode into town to find a doctor. A few miles from the farm, Ketchum and his men began tracking Curry. Stillwell noticed signs that someone had helped hide him and recognized the skill behind it. On his way to town, Henry spotted the group and stopped to watch. Stillwell sensed he was being followed, but before they could catch him, Henry had already vanished and made his way back home safely. Before Henry returned home, Wyatt secretly opened the wardrobe and was astonished by what he found. Intrigued, he recklessly decided to take the gun outside to practice shooting something Henry had never allowed. Wyatt fired several rounds, and finally, one bullet hit the target. Wyatt then put the gun back and curiously opened a wooden box to see what else Henry was hiding. Inside were old newspapers featuring headlines about a notorious outlaw and skilled gunslinger named Billy the Kid. Wyatt didn't realize that the earlier gunshots had awakened Curry. When he returned to the room, he noticed one of Curry's hands had come loose, while the other was hidden under a blanket. Curry stopped pretending to sleep, freed himself, and chased Wyatt with a knife, desperate to reclaim his money. Fortunately, Henry arrived just in time, kicked Curry away from his son, and knocked him out. He was about to finish him with his rifle, but Wyatt stopped him. Moments later, Curry regained consciousness as Henry prepared a knife to remove the bullet from his chest and demand the truth. Curry was terrified, but Henry calmly told him that if he cooperated, the pain after the surgery would be easier to bear. After removing the bullet, Curry revealed that he was a sheriff and warned Henry to take Wyatt away because danger was approaching. But it was already too late. Ketchum and his men had surrounded the house. Henry reached for Curry's gun but found it old and nearly empty. a clear sign that Wyatt had been snooping through his things. Henry stepped outside to face Ketchum and his men. Ketchum introduced himself as the sheriff, with Duncan and Stillwell as his deputies. He claimed that the man Henry was protecting was actually a fugitive impersonating a sheriff. Henry stayed calm, denied knowing Curry, and answered politely. When Ketchum heard the name McCarty, his curiosity grew. It belonged to a young outlaw who had escaped years ago, believed to be dead but rumored to still be alive. Henry explained that he had no relatives outside Oklahoma, so he couldn't be connected to the man Ketchum mentioned. He vaguely recalled hearing about someone named McCarty causing trouble in Arizona and New Mexico, but wasn't sure if there was any connection. Henry also dismissed Ketchum's claims, insisting he hadn't seen anyone matching Curry's description. Ketchum reminded Henry to lock his doors before leaving with his men. When Henry returned inside, he grew furious and struck Wyatt for handling the gun. Wyatt admitted he just wanted to know what it felt like to shoot, being the only boy in the area who didn't know how. Henry sternly warned him never to touch his things again and hit him twice more, which made Wyatt lash out in anger. His harsh words deeply hurt Henry.
You're a stupid, worthless old man. A whole life and nothing to show for it but this rundown old farm, and a boy's gonna leave you alone to die as soon as he's able.
Henry returned to the room where Curry was tied up to ask about Ketchum and his men. Curry revealed that he was the real sheriff, while Ketchum and his gang were bank robbers who had killed the deputies and stolen their badges. He also explained that he had recovered the stolen money, which was why they were after him. Both men knew Ketchum would return. A few miles from the farm, his gang set up camp. Duncan wondered why they hadn't already captured Henry and Curry, but Ketchum suspected Henry wasn't an ordinary farmer and believed any of his men could take him down. He planned an attack but decided to wait, realizing Henry handled a gun far too skillfully for a simple farmer. As they prepared, the gang agreed to hire more gunmen, while Duncan was ordered to watch the house and make sure Curry didn't escape. Henry brought food to Curry while he was still tied up. As they talked, Henry asked more about his past, and Curry recounted his encounter with Billy the Kid. The story made Henry start to trust him. He untied one of Curry's hands and tested him by leaving a gun on the table before going to fetch more ammunition. Curry didn't touch the gun. Henry decided to let him leave that very night. But before Curry could gather his things, Duncan, driven by greed, opened fire on the house. Henry and Curry took cover, while Wyatt was caught in the crossfire, narrowly avoiding a bullet. Curry was shot in the leg and threw his gun to Wyatt before collapsing unconscious. Wyatt reached for the gun, but his father pulled it away. Seeing Duncan downstairs, Henry handed the gun back and told Wyatt how to use it if necessary. Wyatt dropped a book to distract Duncan, then quietly slipped outside with the rifle. Meanwhile, Henry fired several shots downstairs to lure Duncan out of the house. Henry shot Duncan in the leg, bringing him down. When Duncan refused to cooperate, Henry snapped his neck and threw the body to the pigs. Before leaving, he noticed a strange wound on Duncan's arm. That night, while tending to Wyatt's injury, the boy gathered the courage to ask his father about his past.
Who are you?
I'm who I am.
Henry avoided the question. Wyatt realized that if his father knew about the gun, he must also know that Wyatt had seen something hidden in the closet. When confronted, Henry simply said he was still the same man, honest and never a liar. Then he went to check on Curry, who was haunted by nightmares of the night Billy was killed. Before being shot, Billy told Henry to keep his head up and believe he would be fine. Remembering those words, Henry took his rifle and went outside to stand guard, watching for any sign of Ketchum's men. The story then shifts to the Hobbs Ranch, where Al, Henry's brother-in-law, lives. Ketchum and Stillwell went to Al's ranch to ask about Henry, but Al refused to talk and told them to leave. The tension quickly escalated and Stillwell knocked Al unconscious. The next day, at Henry's farm, he told Curry to leave, but Curry was too weak to ride. He urged Henry to take Wyatt and run while he stayed behind to finish what had been started. Wyatt tried to protest, but Henry quickly stopped him and told him to pack up. As they left the house, Ketchum appeared, riding toward the ranch. Henry ordered him to leave everything behind, but Wyatt worried about abandoning Curry. Still, Henry was determined to go, leaving Curry behind. Realizing there was no escape, Henry chose to fight. He took a gun from the closet, gave Wyatt a revolver for protection, and armed himself with a shotgun to face Ketchum. Ketchum admitted he wasn't a sheriff and forced all to talk, but all only replied with a warning that frightened Ketchum's men. Henry told him to stay out of Al's business, yet Ketchum coldly shot Al in the head. Furious, Wyatt rushed out and opened fire. During the shootout, Henry pulled him back inside and repeated the same words Billy had once told Curry years ago. She nearly got them both killed with her tears and anger. Yet instead of killing her, he helped her escape. Her name was Bonnie, and when she spoke Spanish to him, the truth slowly came to light. That was when Curry realized Henry was actually Billy the Kid. Henry returned alone to face them.
Smart choice, friend.
Él no me preocupa.
Henry returned home, where his son was waiting. Though wounded himself, he quickly treated Curry's leg, tearing off his sleeve to stop the bleeding. As he did, Henry noticed that Curry's wound was identical to Duncan's. Curry had been part of the gang from the start. He shot Henry in the chest, knocking him to the ground. At that moment, the sheriff revealed the truth. He and his deputies had once worked with the gang, but later discovered that Ketchum had betrayed them after their last job. They tried to escape with the stolen money. As Henry was about to be shot, Wyatt used his father's revolver to kill the attacker and rushed to his side. Knowing he wouldn't survive, Henry told his son not to call for a doctor. Before dying, he urged Wyatt to leave and explore the world, saying the world had changed and he no longer belonged in it. After burying his father beside his mother, Wyatt took the stolen money and headed north to begin the free life he had always dreamed of.